Detroit, Michigan, October 15th, 1954. Past 9 in the evening, and the Chevrolet engineering building has gone quiet. One office is still lit. The man sitting in it is 44 years old, born in Belgium to Russian parents. Trained as a mechanical engineer in Berlin, he has driven at Le Mans and built engine parts. American hot rodders still speak about with reverence. His title inside the largest industrial corporation on earth is Assistant Staff Engineer, held for 17 months. In front of him is a typewriter, and in it a memo marked confidential, addressed to two of the most powerful engineers in Detroit. The first line he types is not diplomatic. By the looks of it, he writes, "The Corvette is on its way out." 15 months from tonight, this same man will run a Corvette across the packed sand at Daytona Beach at a speed no Corvette has ever approached. Tonight, he is losing, and the only weapon he has is a sheet of paper. His name is Zora Arkus-Duntov. 70 years of chrome and nostalgia have sanded something off the Chevrolet Corvette. We remember an institution, America's sports car, the poster on a teenage bedroom wall. We forget that for 3 model years, it was a failure so complete that General Motors seriously discussed shutting it down. It was not saved by a boardroom. It was saved by one stubborn immigrant engineer who kept writing letters nobody asked him to write, and then went out and proved on sand and asphalt that he had been right the whole time. The Corvette began as theater. In the fall of 1951, Harley Earl, who ran styling at General Motors, watched young American men at the Watkins Glen sports car races lose their minds over small European roadsters, Jaguars, MG Roadsters. Cramped, leaky, slow by Detroit standards, and utterly beloved. Earl came home convinced that Chevrolet, the cheapest division in the company, needed a 2-seat sports car. There was no time to cut steel body dies and no budget for them, so the body was molded out of fiberglass, the only reason the car existed at all. On January 17, 1953, General Motors opened its Motorama show in the Grand Ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria. Something like 45,000 people came through, and the car they stopped for was a little white roadster on a turntable. Within days, the company president had committed to building it. A new engine was out of the question too, so the Corvette got what was on the shelf, a 235 cubic inch inline 6 that had spent its life hauling Chevrolet sedans and delivery trucks. The engineers worked it over honestly, with a hotter camshaft and 3 carburetors under a finned aluminum cover, and got 150 horsepower out of it. Gross by the old SAE measure every American number from this era uses. It was still a truck engine. Behind it sat a 2-speed automatic. 2 speeds in a sports car with no manual gearbox at any price. No exterior door handles, no roll-up windows, just plastic side curtains that clipped into the door tops, which turned a rainstorm into a negotiation. The top leaked, and the sticker read $3,498. Serious money for a 2-seat toy you could not lock. Road and Track tested one in the summer of 1954, and were fair about it. They liked the car, and said so plainly. But the question that hung over the whole program and made it into print in as many words was whether the thing was really a sports car at all. That question was fatal, because the Corvette had no other job. For 1954, Chevrolet went all in anyway. Production moved into a renovated plant in St. Louis, Missouri, with capacity for something like 10,000 cars a year. The plan called for roughly 1,000 cars a month. It built 3,640 for the entire model year, and it could not sell even those. When the calendar turned, published accounts put the unsold stock at around 1,500 cars. 1,500 brand new Corvettes sitting in rows on factory lots and behind dealerships, out in the weather, with dust on the windshields. Think about what that means inside a corporation. Capital tied up in fiberglass, a plant running at a fraction of capacity, an irritated dealer network, and a product senior men are suddenly embarrassed to have championed. Every month the inventory sat. The case for killing the Corvette got stronger. If you like the stories where the sure thing falls apart and one person drags it out of the wreckage, subscribe, because what happens next is the part almost nobody tells. By the middle of 1954, inside Chevrolet, the Corvette was a dead man walking. Salesmen had stopped believing in it. Designers did not want to be assigned to it because a job on the Corvette was a job on the car that was going away. Then Ford arrived. Ford had shown a two-seat car that February, and it reached dealers on October 22nd as a 1955 model. Ford called it the Thunderbird, and Ford was careful never to call it a sports car. The phrase the company used was a personal car of distinction. That phrasing was not modesty, it was strategy. Ford had watched the Corvette bleed for 2 years and drawn the correct conclusion. Americans did not want a European sports car. They wanted a European sports car silhouette wrapped around American comfort. So the Thunderbird got roll-up windows, a steel body, a real trunk, and under the hood, a 292 cubic inch V8 making 193 horsepower with the manual gearbox, which meant it pulled away from the Corvette's truck 6 without breathing hard. It listed for $2,944, and it was, in every practical sense, a better car for less money. Which brings us back to that one lit office. The engine parts were Arden heads, an aluminum overhead valve conversion Zora Arkus-Duntov and his brother built for the Ford Flathead 5.8 in 1947, which took Henry Ford's tired old side valve engine and made it breathe like something European. The racing was real too. He drove at the 24 Hours of Le Mans for Allard and won his class there twice for Porsche. He had stood in that Waldorf ballroom in 1953, looked at the white roadster, and seen potential going to waste. He wrote to Ed Cole, Chevrolet's chief engineer, and enclosed a technical paper of his own on predicting a car's top speed. It was a calling card, and it worked. General Motors hired him on May 1, 1953, not on the Corvette, just at Chevrolet. That is how, on the night of October 15th, a junior engineer with no authority over the Corvette came to be alone in an empty building, typing a memo about its survival. The argument was not sentimental. Dropping the car now, he wrote, would have an adverse effect inside the company and outside it. It would be an admission of failure, and the timing could not be worse because Ford was entering the field at the exact moment Chevrolet was preparing to retreat from it. If Ford succeeded where Chevrolet had failed, that was going to hurt, and it was going to keep hurting. He did not pretend the car was fine. The promotion, he wrote, had been designed to depreciate the car rather than enhance it, which is a remarkable thing for a junior man to put in writing about his own employer. But the Corvette, he insisted, still had the best and raciest look of all the sports cars, the Thunderbird included. The bones were right. Finally, he told them what it would take. Not a facelift, not a price cut, an organization inside Chevrolet that would, in his words, eat and sleep Corvette. Whether one memo saved a car is a claim to treat carefully, but it was written by the right man to the right two men at the moment the decision was live. 1955 is the year that tells you how close it came, because that is when the Corvette finally got the engine it had needed from the first day. Ed Cole's group had spent the early 1950s designing a completely new V8, and what they produced is arguably the most consequential engine in American history. 265 cubic inches, thin wall castings, a valve train built on stud-mounted ball pivot rocker arms, which threw away the heavy shafts everyone else used and let the engine rev. It went from drawings to production in roughly 15 weeks, a number that still makes engineers wince, and it was lighter than the 6 it replaced. In Corvette, Tunit made 195 horsepower against 155 for the old motor. 0 to 60 fell from roughly 11 seconds to around 8.5. Top speed climbed toward 120. Overnight, the Corvette became a genuinely quick car, and it did not matter because there was nobody left to sell it to. General Motors still had those unsold 1954 cars to clear, so it simply throttled the assembly line. For the entire 1955 model year, Chevrolet built 700 Corvettes. Some references put it a little lower, at 674, and you will see both numbers in reputable places. Either way, a plant built for 10,000 cars a year turned out fewer than 1,000. Now set that beside the other number. Ford sold 16,155 Thunderbirds in 1955. Call it a margin of roughly 23 to 1 in the Thunderbird's first season, against a rival with a 2-year head start. No chart makes that look survivable. 2 years and 5 months after that memo, a Corvette off the same St. Louis line would humiliate the fastest production car in the world. But first, somebody had to keep the doors open. The Thunderbird is what saved the Corvette. Not by being worse, by being successful. The moment Ford proved there was money in a two-seat American car, killing the Corvette stopped being a sound business decision and started being a public humiliation. Exactly as Duntov had warned, General Motors could survive a slow seller. What it could not survive was quitting the field in the same season Ford planted a flag in it and made it pay. Corporate pride is not usually a virtue. This one time it bought a car another year of life, so Chevrolet decided to fight. The 1956 Corvette finally had roll-up windows, real door handles, and a top that worked, and Duntov added a high-lift camshaft worth roughly 240 horsepower on premium fuel. Enthusiasts called it the Duntov Cam, and they still do. The manual gearbox became standard, and the automatic became the option, which tells you who was winning the argument inside Chevrolet. A good car does not repair a wrecked reputation. Duntov stopped arguing and went to take the record. Chevrolet quietly ran an engineering mule south, stripped and tuned for one purpose. On the packed sand at Daytona Beach, timed through the flying mile in both directions, Duntov averaged 150.583 miles per hour. Accounts differ on the exact day, somewhere between December of 1955 and February of 1956. Nobody disputes the number, or what it did to the old mark of a little over 127. That is not an improvement. That is a demolition. Then came the day it collected on everything. March of 1957, the 12 Hours of Sebring, a converted airfield rough enough to break European factory teams. Dr. Dick Thompson and Gaston André took a production Corvette with Chevrolet's new fuel injection, a car off the same line that had been turning out unloved fiberglass roadsters 3 years earlier, and ran it for 12 hours. They finished 12th overall, first in the Grand Touring class. At the end of it, the class-winning Corvette was roughly 20 laps ahead of the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. The 300 SL, the Gullwing. The car the world had spent 5 years calling the fastest production car on Earth. Beaten over distance by a Chevrolet a man could order from a dealer in Ohio with a radio and white walls. 2 years and 5 months earlier, one man had sat alone in an empty building and typed that the Corvette was on its way out. Now it was beating Stuttgart. And the sales curve, which is the only argument a corporation ever really listens to, had already turned. 700 cars in 1955. 3,467 in 1956. 6,339 in 1957, an increase of nearly 83% in a single year. The car that could not be given away had a waiting list, and the Corvette never again had to justify its existence. Across the full run of the C1 Corvette, from 1953 through 1962, 69,015 cars were built, 2/3 of them in the last 4 years. And Ford? Ford decided the profit was in comfort rather than 2 seats, and for 1958 turned the Thunderbird into a 4-seat luxury car. It sold better than ever. But the 2-seat Thunderbird, the car that had buried the Corvette in the showrooms, lasted exactly 3 model years and then walked away from the fight. The Corvette stayed. It is still here. Duntov became director of high performance at Chevrolet and eventually the Corvette's chief engineer. He fought management for 2 more decades over racing programs and horsepower. The top floor had no interest in building. He retired in 1975 after 22 years and kept turning up at Corvette events with a cigarette and an opinion until he died on April 21, 1996, at 86 years old. Sit with this for a second. The Corvette we treat as inevitable was not inevitable. In the winter of 1955, it was a fiberglass mistake with an inventory problem and no constituency inside its own company. Every rational argument said cancel it. Corporations end products in that condition every single day, and nobody remembers the funeral. Say it plainly once, because it is the entire point. The Corvette did not survive because General Motors believed in it. General Motors was ready to bury it. It survived because one man refused to let it go, and then proved on a Florida beach and a Florida airfield that he had been right the entire time. So let me ask you, 1955, you have the money and two American two-seaters are on the lot. The Thunderbird, comfortable, handsome, outselling everything in sight. Or the Corvette, unloved, unwanted, and about to become a legend. Which one are you driving home? And be honest about why. And if you ever owned either, tell me the year and what you paid. Those stories are the best thing in the comments.